Welcome back to the Create Podcast. This is the JumpCutKing. As always, visit me at JumpCutKing.com or go to my social media at JumpCutKing. It's already been blowing up with people with comments about how AI might ruin society, and then a lot of personal comments. So today we're going to talk a little bit about originality versus creativity. Then we're going to talk about balancing AI and what that might look like in the next couple years. And then we're going to talk about those negative comments. In fact, we're going to talk about how you as a creator use negative comments and how they're an indicator of something very, very important. Stay tuned. If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification. Oh wait, why am I telling you this? Well, that's because everyone says to do that, right? Every podcast you go, every YouTube video. Mac Rumors does it all the time. Like, comment, share, hit the bell. Here's the animation. I went forth and created an After Effects animation just like everyone else does it. So why can't I? Or why shouldn't I? Let me tell you why. If you're pushing people to do something versus giving them the content, they're likely to jump off the ship. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Originality versus stealing or copying or using AI. What does that mean? So there's a concept in creativity that original thought or something that you have that you can cultivate and brew into something like a novel, a movie, a series, a game, a website, a brand, a piece of art, oil painting, that all of that is original. Anytime you hear, that artist stole that person's work or that looks familiar to that, you feel like someone's stealing. Here's the reality. Most, if not all, creative works are some way in a derivative form, whether it's a derivative form from nature and the world around you, or whether it's derivative and inspired by, is the word I would use, inspired by someone else's creation. So it's okay to borrow someone else's designs, not in the effect to steal it and copy and paste their hard work, but to be inspired by it. A lot of times when people use artificial intelligence and, a lot of people started commenting and say that artificial intelligence is the bane of the existence, that it's polluting the world and destroying creativity. It depends on how you use it. If you use artificial intelligence as a tool to inspire you, to help you with writer's block, to help guide you, then artificial intelligence is a good thing. If you use other artists' work to inspire you, other artists' work to cultivate new ideas, like when I build a new After Effects template from scratch, right? Yeah, many people, when I say After Effects template, I'm saying most people will go to Envato, go to Artlist, go to some of these places and purchase in After Effects or Motion template that does all this cool whiz-bang things, and I actually create my own. Sometimes I will go to Pinterest and I'll look at book covers, magazine covers, I'll look at film posters. I'll look at all sorts of things to get inspiration from, and I'll just be like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, that looks great. Let me copy that and move that. And the finished product will look completely different than the posters, but it was inspired by someone else's creative work, especially when I'm in a rut or, a client asks, can you create something modern or trendy or new? And, they give me information, but nothing kind of pops in my head. I kind of go back to that theory of the reference file. So if you don't know, if you're cultivating something, let's say you're a producer and you're mixing something, right? They'll actually train you. Engineers will train you. Courses will teach you to not mix by your ear alone, especially if you're new and starting. They'll say that you should look at something called a reference file. In other words, pull something similar and hear where those frequencies are hitting, hear that equalization, hear the compression, hear where all the instruments are, and not mimic it, but kind of use it as a guideline when you get started. And as you build confidence and as you build your ear training, you'll begin to separate from that. But there's always a reference file, I think they call it pink noise, but please don't quote me on that, where they use this in mastering to know that all your frequencies should kind of mash in this perfect noise. So you you change the levels and compress and stuff so that each instrument hits that line of noise and doesn't go over and kind of washes out when you have nights. When you turn it off, it almost sounds like a perfect mix. The vocals aren't too high and the guitar is not too low or too high, and you have everything kind of mixed in this well kind of environment. And using pink noise is something that, you get used to doing, and you can adjust, and it's not a bad idea to just, after you've done your remix pass and you're moving on to mastering, you just, toggle that track on, hear what it sounds like, hear a thing, and use it as a guideline. And that helps even the greatest engineers and the greatest of remix artists. I call them artists because it takes a whole lot of both technical know-how, and it's still an artistry to know when to add certain lines and when to add certain effects, and when some effects are too much, especially if you're doing the Atmos, how to divide the music in all these ways. People use this noise. Now, if it's the wrong term, I'll YouTube and I'll put it in the description or put it in the comments when I find it out. But they use this reference file to kind of give them a guideline. And so when I first started off in creativity and I had infinite ideas and no know-how, right? I didn't know how to do X, didn't know how to do Y, and I just had to experiment. So I would download Envato templates, or we had a template library at the time, and pick and choose these templates and pick and choose different parts and learn and kind of break apart, why do they do it this way? How does this work? So now when I create my own stuff from scratch, or have to get a tutorial on how to do something that I forgot how to do, or it's been a long time since I've done, we've all done this stuff, and people will say, well, you're stealing someone else's work. Well, you can't, if you don't have enough brilliance on your own, you can't. No. Part of the creative process is observing the world and allowing your imagination to take flight from what you observe is possible, and anything is possible. Now, if you go back to artificial intelligence and trying to balance that with creativity, you're going to discover real soon that a lot of people have this reliance on artificial intelligence and want to say, here's what I want you to do, and they copy and paste an output from ChatGPT or Google Bard or Meta, whatever it is, they copy and paste and they use that. I don't recommend that at all. I recommend both learning why something is done, and then maybe you don't know the how. Okay, then you go to ChatGPT. How do I do this? I need to do this, but how do I do that? Or maybe I have a different approach, and maybe I steer ChatGPT or chat agents and AI agents to help me narrow in how to accomplish that approach. When I'm writing email copy, right, and I need inspiration, I need more ideas, or I'm writing website copy, and I need, here is the vision, here's their purpose, here's their reason, and I kind of need just fresh ideas. And so I'll literally provide all this information to ChatGPT, kind of like it's a writing employee, and it will return back a result. Well, then it's very important for me as the human, kind of the creative mind behind it, to take that and review it, check it thoroughly, or if my prompt is very well done and I've checked the grammar or I've looked at it, okay, then give it to the client for feedback. And it helps to expedite something that would take a lot of time, that some businesses can't pay for that time. They don't want to pay for a copywriter. So, I have to go to ChatGPT because they're not willing to pay for that in this particular component. Or if they do have the money and resources, and I've sent them a couple things and they want a different tone than I'm able to give them, I can offer them some different options by looking at ChatGPT and working with it. And usually, if they're paying for it, I might use ChatGPT as kind of like not a guardrail, kind of like a template, if you will. Okay, this works. Oh, I like that phrasing, but I'm redoing this. And I spend time honing in that result. Or if I need to say something and I've tried 6 different variations, 6 different paragraphs of how to say this particular thing and just not hitting, I can tell ChatGPT, these are the things I tried. This is the point I'm making. I don't feel like it's landing because I feel like it sounds too marketese or too much SEO, but I still need to keep the keywords in there, and it's too broad, or I need to narrow it down, or it just feels too ethereal and I need to make it more logical, or it feels too logical, I need to make it more abstract. And I just can't find those right words. Well, ChatGPT steps in and is able to help with those guides. Now, here at the Universe, I have a group of creatives that I work with, that I create stuff and I get their opinion, create stuff, get their opinion, create stuff, get their opinion. It's part of that critical feedback process that I described in my podcast a couple episodes earlier. And the critical feedback process, AI is not part of that. Now, AI is also a computer. So it's designed to function well. It's designed to produce data well. So I think it's completely okay to use AI to say, okay, here's my copy I've written. Let me know how this works SEO-wise. Give me your analysis. Okay, great. So compare that to the SEO analysis tools that I have, and compare that to my keyword tools that I have, and work on the reporting. Okay, make some changes. It might recommend X, Y, Z. Maybe I didn't think about X and didn't think about Y. Think of ChatGPT as a culmination of all the knowledge on the internet, or all the knowledge available at the time that's been programmed into it. Now, ChatGPT has a bias. Bard has a bias, Meta has a bias. There are a lot of open source models that don't have too much of a bias, but even though they were originally designed to have no bias, some of the training data has changed over the years. And so they kind of got a little bit more guardrails than they used to. Not that I'm against guardrails, I'm just against someone kind of honing and limiting my responses because of their personal beliefs. Like if I have a Photoshop tool, I don't want Photoshop tool when I say, okay, go ahead and remove this background. Say, oh, I don't want to remove that background because it's good enough for you. No, you're your tool. I asked you to remove the background because you don't know what I want you to do. And to be honest, I can't describe it to you. A lot of things I asked ChatGPT to do in code, it can't understand it. So I developed an entire framework that is very small AI, it's all human curated, all pretty much built by these Calliest fingertips here. And I can, now that I've designed this framework, I can actually tell it, okay, here's the framework, here's the documentation of the framework, build X in this framework. And it works because I've given it its boundaries, and it works well within those boundaries. Now, I've created something that I can't find anywhere else, and it functions faster than I can't find anywhere else. Now, I have some human limitations. I'm still trying to figure out and understand how to build an interface that a common user can use, because I build great user interfaces, but trying to take some tough coding concepts and making it easier and better than no-click options out there. Like I have a good path, but then sitting down and fighting with code and trying to make something work, and then struggling with the biggest thing I struggle with from a usability is I get the back end right. Sometimes I get sidetracked with working on the usability front. And then as I work in usability, I'm comparing and contrasting and fixing one feature and making one feature look good, and then I'm adding another feature and making that feature look good, as opposed to, well, here's the whole thing. It works. It's not great, but it works. And I'm always like, I'm going to make it perfect, or I want to make it the best possible thing. And of course, in business, you have to be very careful with that, because if you go too much of that weight zone, someone else might beat you to the punch and beat you to market. And they might, develop something that's better than you or faster than you. And, by the time you release, you might lose market traction. At least that's what they say. But I still remember the iPhone being this pioneering component that was worked on for years and years and years. And it came out with multi-touch. And everyone was like, oh, shocked multi-touch exists. Like, believe it or not, it was Palm Pilots and stencils and styluses, and it was little arrow keys to select the buttons, and it was a really bad experience. And then they came up with multi-touch, and they decided to give a full-featured web browser into a smartphone. And that took years and years and years of development. Just like Apple Vision Pro took years and years of development. Now, Apple Vision Pro, we're still trying to figure out where it fits and all those kinds of things. And I'm not ragging on Apple, but I'm saying when you use technology can be very helpful. And a lot of people, some of the comments I've received is, AI is terrible and you're taking away jobs and you're doing those kinds of things. And I admit that there are some automation components that are going to remove jobs or change job descriptions. But rather than being afraid of a technology, I've seen this many, many years. There's a whole group of people that get afraid of technology. And they're afraid of its societal damages and they're afraid of using it. But I'm like, if you get on the ground floor of that technology, you can solve some of those societal problems. You can cultivate, better chips in the AI industry so they take less power and they're not causing, loss of rare materials anymore. They're not causing all this power outages and they're not causing all these issues. And I get that people are afraid of AI and AI probably needs some legislation. People say it does. I think it's just a tool. Just like someone could have used Photoshop to counterfeit a United States dollar, and then they passed a law and they changed it. Like, I think AI, the concept of artificial intelligence, the concept of neural networking is a tool. But I'm trying to narrow this back in because I decided for this particular podcast, I'm not going to do a teleprompter. However, I am looking at a device that has 3 camera lenses. So if you're like, where's his eyes? I'm trying to focus on my 1 camera lens. But as a content creator, there are a lot of people out there that are going to judge you for your content, that are going to tell you what you're doing is amounting to nothing, or there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be jealous by your content, give or take. I've not experienced the jealousy component, but I have experienced the night trolls and the people with fast Twitter fingers and less trigger fingers, and they're just typing away and, mashing about my teeth and my hair. Put my hair up, okay? I got a man ponytail. I can't call it a ponytail. We'll call it a stallion tail. Anyway, people commenting about my teeth or people commenting, and I'm just like, why are you commenting on this stuff? So the third thing I wanted to talk about, we kind of talked about balancing AI a little bit, using it as a artistic tool to help it amplify your artistic reach. I see it as an ability to bring what used to be extremely expensive industries and extremely impossible industries, hard to reach places, and all this knowledge that you can have access to now makes it easier for people to become entrepreneurs, to build businesses, to save money where they need to save money and invest that money where they need to invest money. The naysayers that are saying AI is destroying this and AI is destroying that and AI is giving these problems, I understand that there are real concerns. The power outages that AI data centers are causing, the consumption there, the loss of jobs, that every time there's a giant innovative leap in technology, there is that huge worry of loss of jobs. I know, I'm pretty sure people were worried when email was a thing at the post office when it existed. It still exists because there are still components that are integrated in life. It's just the face of it has changed. It's more active online. You can, pre-order things. You can ship online, get tracking, all that kind of stuff. So there is a real concern of job replacement. I did have a conversation with someone about that earlier today. Maybe I'll sit down in a podcast and kind of share some of those thoughts and viewpoints about where society is going in about 10, 20 years. But I feel like as a content creator, you're here in the now and you're also planning in the future. And if you ignore AI and you struggle to write copy and you're spending hours and hours and hours and wasting time, using AI to kind of break that writer's block and help you get content out there isn't a bad thing. The number one thing I hear from everyone who has released content, who has millions and millions of views, who has hundreds of podcast episodes, the number one thing they say, and I think I can agree with it because visibly you can see they have the experience, is they say, just get the content out. Whatever you do, get it out. And if AI helps you get it out, get it out. If you have something that you believe you need to share with someone and you believe is going to have value, whatever tool you need to use. Now, as you grow and as you expand and as you find more ethical ways to use artificial intelligence, you're not copying and pasting, and algorithms are being changed to identify artificial intelligent YouTube reels that were generated, and it can detect descriptions that were generated in the thumbnails, and it can detect websites that were generated, and it can detect all these kinds of things. I get that a lot of people are concerned with AI, but it's a tool. And as a content creator, if you're trying to enter the space, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you're not on social media and you have a bad website, first, if you have a bad website, shameless plug, go to echtuniverse.com, click contact us, give me your information, hit submit. I'll contact you and I will give your entire website a facelift almost overnight. I say almost overnight, technically. Usually takes about a month or two because you have to collect information, and it's a back and forth of missing information I discovered, and there's actual 20 hours or less of development time, and then there's a review process. It's usually about 60 days. And most people, when they develop a site, they start from scratch. They start with WordPress and all those kinds of things, and I have started from scratch. It's my complete framework, all self-hosted, all internally, and it's been very helpful for clients. But the number one thing is if you're an entrepreneur, if you've got a business, if you have an idea, if you have a concept, you have a purpose, and you're not online, you're losing the ability to get your customers where they are. Meet people where they are. Big part of the gospel is finding where people are and going towards them. If I got a message that I need to transact, the life-saving power of Jesus Christ, I can't be in my one little building and not have an evangelistic outreach. There's a church I do a lot of work for, and they have an evangelistic outreach where they send people out every Saturday for 2 to 4 hours, and they go out and they're in the neighborhood and they're reaching. And then every couple months, they'll do a week-long outreach, and they'll go out and they'll meet people where they are, as opposed to being like, hey, I'm here, you build it, they will come. That's kind of not a thing anymore. But if you build a website and they hear about you, the first thing they're going to do is check you out. As a content creator, the first thing you're going to do is check you out. Go to your socials. If your socials doesn't point to a website, then they're going to go based off of your posts. If your posts look bad or aren't engaging, they're going to just drop like hotcakes. Or maybe you have bad teeth. Maybe they'll start putting negative comments. So the first thing I talked about was originality versus creativity. The original thought versus stealing someone else's creative thought, but you're not really stealing it. You're using it to inspire your original thought and kind of create that Rolodex of ideas, thoughts, and concepts that help bridge the gap between both sides of your brain and begin to explore and cultivate newer ideas that go above and beyond, because you're kind of like starting with trying to understand the industry, starting with understanding the question, the why, start learning what people were thinking, and then as you start growing, your brain is able to start bridging new neural networks, bridging new neural gaps, and start to grow and expand rapidly into original thoughts. So it's okay to start with, looking at someone's idea and be like, okay, that looks good, I want to try that. Oh, that looks good, I want to try that. Or this component, this component, this component. And then eventually you're going to build your own After Effects templates, or you're going to build your own concepts and your own novels and your own stories. And I think it's perfectly fine to not steal, but be inspired by someone else's work. And then AI is a tool we talked about that. Now here is something you probably were told. And I want to kind of shift your concept of this. So in my creator journey, I released several podcast episodes. I started releasing reels because I thought podcasts were organic. And to be honest, I didn't have all the time in the world. And, I'm kind of an all-in-one entrepreneur doing everything for my business as I grow. And I have people that I call on to get information with and spend hours on the phone and that kind of thing. But it's still just one person kind of doing everything at the moment. And so it's tough to be like, okay, do your social media strategy. I tried to hire someone to do it, and they were like, well, and back and forth and all these kinds of things. And eventually, okay, here's reels, and I'm posting reels, and I'm posting content, and I'm just, trying to push stuff out there. And I started talking about the why and stuff that I was passionate about, but it wasn't reaching anyone. And then now I'm in that stage where the algorithm knows, oh, you are a content creator. You're actually releasing steady content. And some people like that content. So it starts expanding a little bit more, and it starts letting in a little bit more. And the first group of people that started commenting and interacting, because you get a lot of views, and then you finally get likes, and then you finally get comments. And a lot of those comments are, what people would consider negative in their connotation. So they tell you, like, I speak with a bunch of people who do YouTube channels and, have lots of views and all those kinds of things. And a lot of people say, well, you need thumbnails that look terrible. And then I was told, you need podcast style thumbnails. And I'm just like, people don't care about the thumbnails. I care about the content. So they care about the words on the script. So I came with the concept and I'm testing it. I test these things all the time. I had AI generated thumbnails, and then I had custom generated thumbnails, and then I have thumbnails I have now, which are very basic, I would say. But they kind of work a little bit better than the others, sort of. It's kind of like, I feel like it's lazy, but I found out that no one cares about your thumbnail and from, an art perspective. They care about knowing what's on it. So when they do A/B tests and I wish I could remember this guy's name. Big tech guy, does reviews, does ABC thumbnail testing. And the thumbnails that seem to work best are those this is the content I'm talking about. This is a photo of the phone, and here's the description. This is a very simplistic in concept and execution. One of the things that will happen as you begin to grow and expand, if I move away from the thumbnails and I move into the negative comment realm, is a lot of people will say, ignore negative comments. Some will say, delete them. Others will block them entirely. Here's my take on it. And this is a different take than you've been told. You'll reach a stage, right? You're getting views and you start getting likes, and then you're going to start getting comments. And those comments are going to be inherently negative. I like to think of it this way. The algorithm is reaching people. Problem is, the internet is honestly full of a lot of people who either need therapy or a jail cell. One of the two, we don't know. There's a lot of people that need the information that you're providing, but there's also a lot of people who are more active on the internet that are more like trolls or midnight warriors, or, it's a quote from my friend this morning, who gave me inspiration for this podcast, said, there's a lyric out there that people are easier on their Twitter fingers than they are on their trigger fingers. They're not going to confront you in real life, but because they're anonymous, they're going to send what they send. And so here's the first thing you can't do. You can't let those comments deter you from delivering that message and transacting that message that God has designed for you to do, or that you feel inspired to do if you don't believe in God. Now, I believe everyone has a God-ordained, custom, specific purpose that only you can accomplish in this world. That's a gift from God. Believe that wholeheartedly, whether you're saved as a Christian or you choose a different religion or however have you. I still believe you have a custom, tailored, unique purpose. Now, I still believe there's only one way to heaven. That's a whole other story. I still believe that you have a message and it has a purpose. Whether you're going to reach 100 people, 1,000 people, or 1,000,000 people, there's sometimes just reaching that one person that needs that encouragement, needs that instruction, needs that inspiration. And reaching that one person is all you need to care about. But you might get 8 comments about your hair, face, teeth. I got it all. And so, maybe I should do a little bit better preparing the facade and, maybe putting some, God forbid, makeup on and, getting a barber to do my hair and trimming my beard and getting rid of the mustache and whatever. And maybe getting my teeth looked like by one of the comments someone said is best tooth advertisement before picture. And I was like, great, thank you. But first thing you can't do is you can't let those negative comments deter you from accomplishing the goal and purpose in your life. You can't. One of the most important things is for you to do what God has called you to do, or to execute the plan that you have, to perform and transact that reason, that why that you're doing what you're doing. That's the important part. Second, the algorithm loves interaction. It does. Think of all the people that are big, right? Let's use, what's his name? I don't know his full name. I keep forgetting, but commonly known as Speed. If you look at some of his YouTube content beforehand, and if you watch this person who does really stupid things for subs or subscriptions, subscribers, whatever, jumping into a 200-inch plasma screen TV or whatever, and just, I don't know, poor guy. But if you look, when he first started, negative comments is a thing. In fact, everyone, when you reach the first phase from the quiet zone to the don't look at the numbers, be informed by them, but don't stop because of them. You're still trying to figure out your niche, still trying to figure out where you're going until you have a certain amount of numbers. I tell people, okay, let's create a content strategy that works for you, that you believe in, that your customers believe in, that you're getting good positive feedback on, and you might not get the interactions you want when you first begin. You might not get the interactions you need, but let's work on that, see what works. When you start getting those bigger numbers, great, now we can look at, okay, customers are really resonating with artificial intelligence. Polarizing, good, bad, great. So I did an artificial intelligence tutorial and it was good. And then I did another one and it was okay. And then I did another one and then I got all the negative comments you could ever think of. It was great, actually mostly on Reels. But that's where I'm reaching people at. I don't believe you delete them. In fact, people say to ignore them. I don't believe you ignore them. I'm not saying you need to hit the like button, but you should comment on every one comment as posted. I'm not saying you need to defend yourself. I'm not saying you need to fight with them and go rounds for rounds. Treat it like a joke, because most of the people that are saying those things they're saying it because they look at you and they have a knee-jerk laugh reaction at something, or something comes out to them and they're like, oh, that guy's face or that guy's teeth. I know I keep mentioning the teeth. But if you comment to them and get them to interact, and sometimes you'll find that maybe they're just saying X, but they mean Y, and they'll start, there's dialogue that can happen. Now, if that dialogue gets overtly negative, okay, delete their last comment and stop responding. That's okay. That's what I did. I really can't I don't like the idea of deleting comments because I believe in the freedom of speech. Now, if someone's cussing you out, if someone is attacking people on your YouTube channel and the community is just not growing, okay, prune those. If they're calling you whatever, okay, prune those. But if they're, just having fun, so to speak, at your expense, that's the internet world. That's the community of high school. If you consider the internet as high school, it makes a lot of sense. And my approach to high school was run and leave as fast as possible. And I did so. I got a full-time job and I lived. But you can't just run from life. Your best thing is to approach it as it's useful interaction for the algorithm, and the algorithm will be inspired. And then figure out why people are posting that. Some that pop up on their feed randomly. Someone said, I should have got a jump scare warning before I saw your face. Okay, I added before I saw your face for context. And I was like, there was like jump scare warning. I was like, okay, maybe all I did is send a laughter emoji. Okay, great. I've commented and the algorithm says, oh, you're interacting. You're not a random person just posting. You're not flooding social media to just you're actually engaging. And that's what you need to step into is you go from uploading content and seeing, kind of like throwing stuff and seeing what sticks intelligently. Okay. Work on a content marketing strategy. Tell people this all the time. Work on a strategy that resonates with you and resonates with your customers. Don't just think that you're the customer. Find who your customer is. If you don't know who your customer is, we can do a demographic study and research. We can help pinpoint, okay, if you want to do X, this is what we recommend your customer to be. If you don't like that customer, then don't do X, because that's your customer. And when it comes to negative comments, you're on social media. I don't want to do social media because people blah, blah, blah. You can't, there is no world where you can conduct business that's not online. There's no world. In fact, there's probably not a world where you can't conduct business now through AI and training ChatGPT to read your content and be able to answer to other people. It won't be long before ChatGPT has advertisements built into them to offer your products and services to customers who are chatting with it, integrated into the chat. Yeah, I know. Shocking, isn't it? And people said the same thing about social media. Well, I don't want to do social media. People said something about, 99% of the website is porn. Actually, 99% of the website you can actually see. It's called the dark net. And pray you never know how to access it. I know someone who did, and let's just say their work laptop got confiscated because of the stuff they were seeing. Not that they wanted to see it, but the darknet is this vortex of doom. Anyway, so there's a whole percentage of the internet. Not to mention, there are services that communicate on ports other than 80 and 44.3. Okay, it's HTTP and HTTPS. In fact, it shouldn't do HTTP anymore. It should all be HTTPS. In fact, if your web redirects are broken, oh, you know what? I'm rabbit trailing, which is why I usually do prompter to try to guide my conversation. So it's less off the wall and disconnected. It's because it's connected in my mind, but trying to translate that is connected to something that I'm talking about to you. And sometimes I'll just ramble and it's not really connected. Again, negative comments. Don't ignore them. Don't delete them. Respond to them. But don't let that emotion that they're giving you hit. Here's the biggest reason. I'm gonna put my strategic communication. I got a strategic communications degree, and I'm gonna put that hat on for a second and talk to you in transacting your message. It's not how you tell a message; it's how a message is perceived by your audience. It's a two-way conversation. I prefer to have messages and conversations in person so I can see your face and visually see your responses. Because I like to say 80% of what you're saying is actually in your face and body language than it is what you're saying. Because I've been in rooms with people and they could be saying a lot of crazy things. I'm interpreting and I'm understanding based off your body language and the people around you and how they're reacting. I'm like, okay, you're not actually saying that. That's what you're telling me you're saying. But what you're really saying is X, Y, and Z. And usually I get the silence in the meeting and then yeah, okay, you're right. And we conquer that concern and we deal with that and we move on. Biggest thing in the world is to find the problem and move on. Please don't spend 18 hours talking about it. Everyone in the room will have lost the will to live. Their legs have all gone to sleep. Their eyelids are begging for sleep. Let them go home. Anyway, negative comments, don't ignore them. Negative comments should inspire you that you're reaching people on the internet. You're not reaching the right people? Okay, it's possible. It's also possible you're reaching the right people, but they don't have a reaction to you yet. They don't know you enough yet to respect you. That's okay. Respect is earned. It's not given. It's not inherent. It used to be that respect was inherent. That if you were online or if you were on TV, that you were instantly respected. That's not the case. A lot of people who had that respect on TV and who had that respect online, society tells us and history tells us that they lost that respect and that ability to be authentic because there was abuse and you name it. So they may not respect you, they don't know you, and they may just have a knee-jerk reaction to something they see. Because frankly, think of it this way. You're on TikTok, you're on YouTube Reels, and you're swiping, and all of a sudden, boom, there you are. And they're like, who is this? I don't care about this. And boom, because we're laughing, or they were looking at eye candy, or whatever the 9,000 things people do on Reels. And you disturb the natural flow. That's actually what you want. You want to disturb the natural flow. You want to be a disruptive, not influence, but a disruptive innovator in that you're catching people off guard to show them something cool that you're doing, to inspire them, to draw their attention. That's what Apple does. That's what all the big, I know I keep using Apple and I really need to just go through my Rolodex of other options. It's just, Apple's easy. Everyone knows it. Everyone gets it. Can't talk about Joe Schmo client because you don't know who they are. And they probably won't appreciate me talking about them. Although, I can't tell you of a client that wouldn't mind. But you'd have to go Google them and find them and all that kind of stuff and privacy concerns, blah. Negative comments means your content is growing. And if you block them and if you hinder them, you're hindering their free speech. Everyone has the right to free speech. They don't have the right to bash you. If comments get bad, okay, I understand. Maybe don't respond to that one. Maybe delete that one. If comments are extremely negative, like threatening, vulgar, threatening, vulgar, not offensive, because what you consider offensive may not be offensive to someone else. It's threatening, vulgar, and something else. But if it's those, we'll stick with those two. If it's threatening or vulgar, okay, delete it. Now, what you consider vulgar may not be what someone else considers vulgar. So you may have to figure out where that line is. If they drop an F-bomb, okay, you're gone. If they drop other words, okay. If it's pointed towards you and you can be like, oh, that's funny. Do a one-liner quip, something cool that's not attacking them, but, kind of continues the conversation a little bit. And they might respond or whatever. Someone said using AI and stealing people's content is beta. I said pushing technology to limits is alpha. Those who don't know what beta and alpha is, don't worry. And all that is sparking the conversation to begin to build the community. Because remember, you're seeing that interaction. I had a TikTok post that had 10, 15 great solid comments and conversations, and then 25 hidden comments for mental stability. But if I deleted them, the algorithm would think, oh, you're not responding to these comments, it's not growing. Okay, you know what? You're just posting for no reason. You have to think of it this way. The algorithm is trying to find authentic connections and media that people will consume and interact with. People watching your views and spending a long time watching it, that's step one. And you want to increase that from 14% to 50%. If you can get that sweet spot of 65%, great. If you can release something fast and small and it goes to 200 and 300%, fantastic. Your views are going to skyrocket. Then you're going to get people who actually like. Now, the algorithm kind of doesn't really change with likes until you reach about 10 or more of them. And then you'll see your videos start getting boosted again. You'll see the views rise. Great. But then there are comments. Now, certain algorithms may treat comments, negative comments, as certain ways, and your response to them is different. But if it's a conversation, the algorithm starts supporting it and has started resurrecting videos that I've posted weeks ago, and they've just been resurrecting and comments have been going, and boom. You have to think of social media is finding the people where they're at. And they can be in all sorts of walks of life. They can be in all sorts of frustrations at life. They can be in all sorts of political spectrums. And you have to respect that people are going to have different opinions than you. So if they're commenting, I hate AI because AI has this societal issue and this societal issue and it's the bane of existence. Okay, that sucks that they're saying that if you believe that AI can be helpful, but know where they're coming from. Maybe they have some good information. Maybe they don't. And all you have to do is respond with a comment. Let people know that you've read the comment, you hear them, and you're responding back to them. You're letting them know, low-key, that they're valued, even if you don't agree with what they're saying. And even if they're just pointing jabs at you and kind of, quote-unquote, making fun of your hair, your teeth, your face, the trifecta, then maybe you just need to not think of it, you're in high school, and the people that are most popular make jokes at each other. Put my psychiatrist hat on. Psychology tells us that if you want a really, really healthy family relationship, wife, husband, okay, male husband, female wife, being specific. If you want a healthy relationship, you have to be okay with making jokes at each other. In fact, the most healthiest relationships I've seen is that, they're making jokes about, oh, you look like this or that happened or whatever. And if you step away and you're just an onlooking observer, you're like, you would say that about your wife? My wife's my friend. To a best friend, for men, a best friend, like I have a few men who hold me accountable, who I ask for advice, who ask for wisdom. 90% of our conversations are jokes, sometimes pointed at me, sometimes pointed at them, and it's just, you're just, in fact, psychology says, based off some studies, that for a man to have a good friend who's giving him advice and that kind of thing, they're going to joke around and bash all the time. Internet's doing the same thing. On a subconscious level, internet's doing the same thing. I can't tell you okay, 80% of men are making those comments or 90% of women, just don't know. And there's no information I can pull from accounts that says you're commenting and this is a male and you're commenting this is a female, because you can't trust the internet. It's the internet. But I can say this, they're people. And people may enjoy trying to find someone and trolling them and, seeing what their response is. Ha ha ha. Or most people are like, dude, I sure got a warrant for a jump scare. Send, get off my feed, move on. Okay, great. That's an engagement point. That's an interaction. I still firmly believe, I'm going to leave you with this after the prayer. Any press is good press. Anyone interacting with your business, anyone interacting with you, anyone conversating with you, starting a podcast on you, whatever it is, any press is good press, as in it sparks conversation, it gets people to think about you, think what you're doing, those kinds of things. Now, sometimes there's a lot of negative press and you have to learn how to handle that. And that's a whole department of people, so to speak, that takes a lot of capacity to address things. And, especially in this culture where people are easily offended. And if you don't respond to a certain person in a certain way, they're not actually going to hear your statement. They're going to receive the information incorrectly. Like you may be like, I'm saying X, Y, Z, and this is what I meant, but someone's going to receive A, B, and C, and they might be mad that you said A, B, and C. That's not what you meant to say, but that's how the message is received. And remember, transacting a message is not about what you say or how you deliver it, but rather how it's received. Your demographic that you're at. So you're on the internet. You're going to get the trolls, the night walkers, the night warriors, the Twitter trigger fingers. You're going to get all of that. And that's okay. Embrace it. Now, if they're threatening someone with violence or you with violence, or if they're cussing up a storm, okay, they're not healthy for your community. Mute the comment, delete the person. And there are some people who've had to block, but a lot less than most organizations will. If you have a corporation and you think it's bad for someone to have a conversation about X, about Y, about Z, maybe it's time to look at, okay, maybe we have to embrace this a little bit. Let the interaction grow. Let us get viral for a good thing or a bad thing. Let it just happen. And if it, people are always afraid of the cancel culture, right? I don't know where that term came from, but frankly, it's about people who are having a strong opinion about something you said or did. Their opinion might not be right. Their opinion might be their own, but they're entitled to it. Shifting your whole business and changing your whole perception on life because someone wants to cancel you, or going in and attacking someone because you don't feel they have a right to their opinion. In a civilized society, it only works if you understand I have an opinion and you have an opinion. We are all free to offer our opinions. There are facts which should be separate from opinions. I know politically it's very hard for people to separate facts and opinions. It's very hard. Believe it or not, I have a twin brother who's like equal and opposite of me, and is extremely liberal, and he thinks I'm extremely, we'll say it, Republican, although I believe I'm a registered independent. And I believe I have a set of beliefs and set of views, and he'll constantly say, well, you believe this. And I'm like, actually, I don't. I believe this, which is not what you believe, but I understand. But it's hard for me to have conversations that are about these things, but I have to remember, that's my brother. When someone's texting and someone's tweeting you and someone's commenting, hey, that's a customer. That's a valued human being. Whether or not you respect their comment, whether or not their comment is good, whether or not their comment is bad is immaterial. The important part is you're reaching someone. You're actually accomplishing your goal. You're going from step 1 or phase 1 into phase 2, and you're going to start building, and eventually you're going to find that community and step into phase 3. It takes time. It takes patience. The biggest word of advice that I can leave you is whether you use AI or don't, or whether you borrow someone's creativity or don't, is whatever you do, do it. Whatever your hand finds to do, this is scripture, whatever your hands find to do it. as unto the Lord. Don't stop. All the devil wants to do is take you out. Trust me. Me recording this, after those comments, Lord Jesus, I'm human too. But I have a purpose that God's called me, and that's higher than my emotional state of being. It is. And the same thing for you. You got a purpose. You got a dream, something to pursue, and it's much better. It's much higher than your emotional state of being. It's much higher than laziness will let you go. It's much higher than depression or oppression or anything you're dealing with. So it's tougher said than done. I know. Shake it off. Respond. Let them know, hey, I value you. Thank you for your comment. Maybe just a laughter emoji or fire or the thoughtful emoji is what I've been doing, because it's like, you're saying something, I don't know what you're saying, so let me ponder that. I may never respond back, but at least hey, I'm looking at it. I see your comment. I'm responding to it. Even if you're have an agency doing your comments, respond to everyone who comments. They took their time to respond. It doesn't hurt you to take your time to respond. Now, if they're cussing at you or they're threatening you, like I said, borrow them from the channel if you have to. But it's much better to let that phase 2, start working, let the algorithm build, and those kinds of things. Don't let fear lead you. And you will not only survive, but you'll begin to thrive. But it requires dedication, pursuit, continue growth, continued moving forward, continually building and building and building and not stopping and not stopping and not stopping. Being an entrepreneur means that you have the tenacity to not quit. I pray right now that you get boldness, Holy Spirit infused boldness, that you get the passionate pursuit of that purpose that God has placed on your heart, that you don't quit, that you don't stop, that you keep going and pressing towards the mark of the high calling of Jesus Christ. Whether you're saved or not, I pray the Lord gives you that blessing and that peace to pursue the purpose that God has laid on your heart, whether you know it or not. I pray this in Jesus' mighty name. May His glory be exemplified in all that I do and all that you do. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. I'm the JumpCutKing, and I could continue for about another 30 minutes, but I promise I keep this short. We'll see you next time, right here on the Create Podcast.